Oh, Gary is actually here. Okay. You're muted, Gary. I still can't hear you. Huh. Let's see if that works. Our recording last time too, Corey, it was really weird. It like started like later, like we'd already gotten started, and that's where the recording started. It was strange. It was like, I don't know, 2 minutes in or 3 minutes in or something.
Interesting. I thought I had it all set to auto record, but
yeah, you did. And I remember it was recording while we were telling jokes.
Weird.
So yeah. All right. Here we go.
Michelle, is that any better?
Yep, there you go.
Good. You know, I heard Courtney online. Just want to brag on Courtney. Courtney's on the top 100 interns list this year. So congratulations, Courtney. And by the way, that's not top 100 at CDOT, even though we don't, and we're not quite that far yet. That's top 100 across the country. So Courtney, congratulations and well deserved.
Good job, Courtney.
I didn't see that they'd posted it yet, so that's cool.
Check your LinkedIn. As you might imagine, somebody, who knows, I might have been that somebody, posted about that.
Okay, I will.
So anybody have any good jokes this time? Why does Humpty Dumpty love autumn?
Because he wants to have a great fall, right?
Yes. Good job. What happens when a strawberry gets run over crossing the street? Traffic jam. I know, these are horrible. Absolutely horrible.
What do you call a can opener that doesn't work?
No can
opener.
A can't opener. I was gonna say no can do.
What do you get when you combine a rhetorical question with a joke?
Showing a joke. I don't know.
Nothing. It's just done.
Just nothing. I was like for a second going, okay, is that it?
What's worse than it raining cats and dogs? Hailing taxis.
That was a good one, and that's true.
There are three types of people in the world. There are three types of people in the world: those who can't count and those who can.
Oh my goodness. I always love these silly jokes at the beginning. A termite walks into the bar and says, "So is the bartender here?" Get it? Because he wants to eat it. Okay, yeah, that was bad.
I found one the other day. I'm going to reuse it.
Okay.
What did one hat say to the other?
I don't know.
You stay here. I'll go on ahead.
On ahead.
Oh.
I love these dad jokes. They're so fun.
My favorite.
Oh, that's awesome, Leslie. Many thanks to CDOT. They're already getting the roads ready.
Yeah, so it was just great, right? There was such a ton of work happening, right? All in Summit County, I-70, around Dillon, Vale Pass, right? So you're like, yep, it's that time of year.
Let's get the
roads ready.
Yeah, we buy
Although
all
I was also out there during that big deluge. So I know there were some things that happened in Denver that weren't really what anybody wanted to have happen in Denver. But all I could say is, at least from a mountain perspective, the roads were looking really good to get ready for snow that's coming.
Yeah, it'll be
And
here
cold
soon.
weather. Yeah.
We already
And cold
got
weather.
some in some of our peaks last weekend. We've already got some. So that was crazy. Even Pikes Peak down here in Colorado Springs got a dusting, I think on Saturday or Sunday. So very cool. It is that time. All right. Is Dean on? I don't see Dean's name. Of course, I can't see everybody. Let me email him. Or Courtney, you got that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, see if you can nudge him and ask him to join. And I will go ahead and get started, and hopefully Dean will be joining us very soon. So welcome and good morning, everyone. To get started, if you experience any issues, please let Corey Niemeyer know. You can either email him or you can chat it into the chat pane, either way, and he'll help you with any technical issues that might come up. Remember to unmute your phone or microphone when you want to answer or ask questions. We encourage everybody to chime in and talk, and that's what our community is all about. So on the left-hand side is your unmute, and then of course your chat button is there. So today's August 23rd. I can't believe we are getting so close to fall, and I'm just excited. I'm excited for fall personally. I'm ready for some cooler weather. The purpose of the PSCP, of course, is to ensure that everyone impacted by change is successful with that change. We are here to learn from each other, inspire each other, just kind of be a support system for all of those resistance issues that we kind of come across in our day-to-day work. So this is our agenda for today. We've already done some pretty corny jokes, which was awesome. We're going to talk about the PSCP board real quick. We've got a couple of announcements. Then we're going to dive into creating the continuously improving government organization with author Dean Schroeder. And then we'll have some Q&A after, and then we'll close up. So this is the new PSCP board. You can see that we're starting to grow a little bit more. We've got myself, Melissa Lill, Corey Niemeyer, Courtney Osborne, Kaylee. Oh, she's helping us. Kaylee Smiley's been an intern helping us. And our newest member, Doug Oates. He has just joined the PSCP as the Director of Strategy and Organizational Development. We are so excited to have him on board. He's been a great member, a great supporter of change management for many years now. So, and I don't know if he's here today or not. He might not be. So next time we'll have him say a few words. So get involved. We say this every time. We are cheerleaders. We want you to get involved. And what we're working at right now is planning webinars for the next year plus. And so we're asking you, what do you want to hear about? What do you want to learn about? Do you want more case studies? Would you like to do a workshop, or what type of workshops were you interested in, or other activities? Drop us a line, let us know. We are open to any topic that you want to talk about in the umbrella of change management. And we will do our best to address or, get the speakers on that you'd like to hear from, or get somebody to talk about the topics you want to hear about. So the bottom line too, unmute, ask questions, just get involved. Send us articles you'd like to have in the newsletter, anything you want to do. And if you want to participate in the PSCP as a board member, that would be great too. We do have one more opening, and that is the Director of Operations and Learning Development. So if you would like to join our board, we have a lot of fun. We meet once a month for a board meeting. We talk about, we plan, we talk about things that are coming up. We plan things that are coming up. And really, we want to start thinking about the future for PSCP and where we can go with it. So if you want to be part of that conversation and help us get there, we would love to hear from you. And to apply for the Director of Operations and Learning Development, just send us an email to info@pscpractitioners.org. Why are you interested in joining the board? Tell us why you are suited for this position and what is your favorite thing about change management. So a pretty simple application process. We would love to hear from you. So do you need PMI PDUs? And Gary Degenhart is here today. He's from PMI. And we're making sure that if you need those PDUs from PMI, make sure to fill out the survey at the end of today's session. And we will definitely send your attendance to PMI so that you can go in and get that through the PMI portal. And we will definitely link that survey to the chat here in a little bit. So a quick funny, we always like jokes at the PSCP, so this one's kind of funny. No thanks, we're too busy. And we could have really helped them out a lot. I really like that one. And the next one, for those of you who don't know, I've recently got into memes. I am like all about memes lately. And so I made this one and I wanted to share it with you. You told people about the change in a blast email and nothing changed. Interesting. So I thought that was a funny, and the person in this photo actually was one of our previous interns at CDOT. This is Niles Collinger. He was an awesome intern, and I stole that from Facebook. So, but I told him I was going to be using it, so we're good. I love memes lately. We've been doing that a lot on our team. So, and I see Dean joined us. Hi, Dean. How are you?
I'm fine, Michelle. Sorry I'm a little late there.
That's okay. We're glad to have you. So I just want to introduce you to everybody. This is Dean Schroeder. He is going to be talking to us today about creating the continuously improving government organization. And I'm going to stop sharing so Dean can share his screen. There we go.
All right. Let's see if I can figure out how to share here. Right there is what I'm supposed to. And that should be it. Okay, are you seeing my slides?
Yes.
All right, good. Well, thank you very much, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be talking to you guys at PSCP. I was excited when I got this invitation, even if it was a little bit of last minute, because what you guys are doing is such important work. And so much can be done to make our operations better. It's really surprising what we found. As you may have seen in the promotions, we have a new book out, and the book is the result of. I've got to get my tech here right. There we go. The result is the result of a 6-year study of continuous improvement in government. As a matter of fact, what we did is we looked, it's one of the largest studies that's been taking place in a long time. And we looked at about 77 different government organizations in 5 different countries, ranging from state level, province level, down to cities and departments within cities, for example. Now let's start out by thinking, when we think of change in government or change in anything, we're always attracted to the big, the dynamic stuff. We get excited by it, make no small plans. What's the point in doing little things when the need is so big and you need big things? Well, guess what? Just to make sure, are you getting the full screen on yours? Okay, I see. I see Michelle saying yes, because I've got something in the way here. Let me straighten that around there.
Taskbar or something, yeah.
Okay, got the taskbar out of there. But anyways, practical innovation in government. But what we found in the study is what works best to improve government performance is not necessarily the same that works in business. It's two different types of things, and it's not surprising why when we get into it. We've got, we had a funny journey on this book, just to set you up. We didn't intend to write the book. As a matter of fact, we were working on our last book and just finishing that off when we started getting a lot of questions from people in government. And we had worked in government along the way, but you know, the stuff we did, which was the same stuff we did in the private sector to help them, didn't always work well. And we wondered why. So we decided to start asking. We started asking, what is different about continuous improvement in government? Now, when you guys think about it, we borrow a lot from the private sector, but does it work? Is it what's effective? Is it as effective in government? What works, what doesn't? And that's what we decided to do. So we ended up, like I said, in over 1,000 interviews by the time we were through. It was a 6-year study. We were able to study a lot of organizations longitudinally. You think 6 years ago, then add a couple of years for COVID and writing. That's an 8-year start. Now, 8 years ago, where were you guys in continuous improvement? And most people listening to this, they're probably pretty infant in their program, or they weren't even there. As a matter of fact, that's what we were finding. And so we were following this as a lot of the organizations we studied were evolving. As a matter of fact, some of the organizations that made it in our book didn't even have programs when we started our research. So it's kind of exciting to watch that unfold. Well, guess what we discovered? Not surprisingly, government is different than business. You know, you get a lot of people saying government should behave more like a business. Guess what? In some ways, yes, but when they behave too much like a business, they're just creating new problems for government. Why? Well, some approaches that work well in business also work well in government, but some need to be modified and some don't work well at all. And guess what we also found? We found government doing some things that business could learn from. That was the exciting thing for us. Why is this so? Well, let's look at government. You guys can answer this more than me, actually, because you live it. I only live it tangentially. You know, universities aren't sort of really government, even though they are government. They have some of the same problems, but and I've worked with government a lot along the way, but government performs a different role. It has a more complex mission. What's the mission of business? Well, to be crass, it's to make money. It's economic. Government, well, they've got all sorts of different things they're trying to do and be efficient economically at the same time, but mostly it's service to people. A unique set of checks and balances. I mean, think of government, all the checks and balances you have inside, lots of bureaucracy. Why? Bureaucracy is not necessarily bad. The rules are there for reasons. Some of them get in the way, some of them, sometimes we get over red tape, but sometimes those rules are protect us and protect our citizens. There's a different nature of leadership. One of the things we found that was rather interesting in our study in Sweden, especially, we got into some real good talks with some of the folks that were running the programs there. And they say, one of the things different about democratic government is the people in charge don't know what we're doing. They're good at getting elected. They're good at politicians. They're not necessarily good at what we're doing. They don't necessarily know what's going on. So it is different when they try to improve things. Sometimes it gets in the way. And when we try to improve things, we got to sell it to them. So it's a lot different. Different structure, culture, workforce. You can add to that list, I'm sure. So what was our first finding? Our first finding was, I'm going to go through some of the high level findings. I don't have a lot of time to present because like any academic, when they're talking about their research, they can go on forever. You give them, yes, you give me 5 minutes on your research. 2 hours later, they're still not done. But it's exciting. But one of the things we found was improvement efforts driven by management and professional staff are more challenging in government. Think about it for a second. Why would that be? Well, let me just give you an example right off the bat. We had a rapid improvement event in one of the states. You know, a rapid improvement event in industry, that's 3 to 5 days, a few days ahead of time, a few days after you make this change in a process. All right. We had rapid improvement events in government that were going 9 to 18 months. let's see, 3 weeks, 9 to 18 months. Why? They're more difficult. They're more complex. You got to check with more people. You need more permission. It just is more difficult to change larger programs, processes in government than it is in the private sector. So a lot of the private sector push is driven by managers, by professional staff, and it's just more difficult in government. That's not saying we shouldn't be doing it, but it's more difficult. But you know what we did find is where the real activity was frontline managers, employees were the ones driving most of the organizational improvement in the high performing government units. We divided our sample up into high performers, moderate performers, and regular performers, and poor performers. And the high performers, all the activity was on the frontline level with the people in the trenches, with those managers at that level. Why? Let me give you an example first, then we can see. This was Denver's Department of Excise and Licensing. Stacy Laux walked into the department when she was given the charge by the mayor. She was put in charge of the department. She walked in, this is Denver, summertime, 85 degrees. The air conditioner couldn't keep it below 85 because there were so many people waiting in line, milling around, trying to get served, that the body heat just kept the temperature up. Well, she pulled in help from Peak Academy. That's the group in Denver, the city of Denver, set up by the mayor to help in continuous improvement and innovation, as they put it. And Brian Elms, director, seconded Melissa Wiley now, to Melissa to help measure what was going on. She found it was taking 1 hour and 40 minutes to be served, with peak times of 5 and 6 hours. People waiting to get their licenses. Some 70, 80 different licenses were offered, everything from liquor licenses, restaurant licenses, to security guard licenses. One of the fun ones was what they did with food truck licenses. But in 18 months, they got it down to 7 minutes. From 1 hour and 40 to 7 minutes with peaks of 15. Now, I don't know about you, but that's very understandable. Actually, a couple of years later, we went and followed up. There were no lines. How'd they do it? Predominantly with small employee ideas from the front lines. Small employee ideas. We get into, let's look at what that is. Small ideas really, how do you transform a department like that with small ideas? Nothing big, nothing major, but with small ideas. How do you do that? Well, one thing we got to remember is small ideas are the Rodney Dangerfield of improvement. Most of us, I think, know Rodney Dangerfield. He was the comic that always said, he gets no respect. But small ideas get no respect. They're just little things, right? They're just little things, no respect. But the issue is they're quick and easy to implement. They're very low risk. They don't need permission and resources to implement, and they fly under the bureaucratic radar. So they don't need lots of checks and balances and all that sort of stuff. You don't need a lot of permission, so they can get done. You can just do them. What do you do if an idea doesn't work? You undo it. It's not that difficult. You try something else. But the interesting thing, small ideas may be tiny, but they can pack a surprisingly large punch. Let's look at some of that. First of all, most small frontline ideas have a surprisingly high impact. Why? Why will you think about it? Let's look back at Denver again. Denver had a problem. They had a computer and printer set up in the lobby for people that needed to do background checks. They had to do their own background checks and pass them in. And background checks for security guards, for liquor licenses, a lot of things they need background checks for. What was happening, though, is this software was confusing, and so they kept interrupting. They kept interrupting the technicians, keeping them from serving other people. So they have interacted. So what did they do? A couple of technicians got together. service technicians got together and they created an instruction manual with screenshots and arrows so you could go through it very, very easily. What was the net result? They saved 5 minutes, 5 minutes each interruption. But there were 36 interruptions a day. You add that up, that's 750 hours a year. I don't know about you, but 750 hours is not a small idea, is it? Yet it was a small idea. Now, you add to that, there's a sheer quantity of small ideas, means that their cumulative impact is enormous. Now, one idea is saving 750 hours a year. Now you take dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas, you're saving a lot of time, a lot of time. Let's look, for example, what we found at ADOT in, that's the Arizona Department of Transportation, at their MVVD service center, the 51st Avenue one in Phoenix. They had people moved in when they had to get serviced by the license. They brought their dogs, they brought their kids, they brought television sets, devices. Why? Because it took so long. It was taking, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. Sometimes the place was a chaotic mess. Well, with frontline ideas, mostly about 12 implemented per person, per employee per year. In other words, everyone has an idea a month that's implemented. It's just a little idea. They moved wait times from 75 minutes on average with peaks of 3 hours plus to 75% of people being served in under 15 minutes. But here again, lots and lots of those small frontline ideas. Lastly, incremental improvement is the key to a high-performing culture of learning. You think about it, and you got improvement being forced down from the top. That's sort of, as long as they're forcing it, there's maybe something getting done, but they're going to get distracted and move on to something else, or they do an improvement here and then go move on to something else. What you need is this continuous improvement effort, and that has to begin with a culture from the bottom, which is where the small ideas and most of the ideas are. Did you know that 80% of an organization's ability to improve and innovate actually lies in the ideas of their frontline people? That's why the normal organic, what I could call management-driven learning rate in an organization, the rate at which they improve, is about 1 to 3% a year. This has been steady since the invention of the steam engine. There's been about 1 to 3% a year. That counts technology improvements. Well, what we found with frontline driven groups is the improvement rate was 10 to 15% a year, compounded. Think of the advantage this gives. Think of the advantage this gives you. And that's all about how an organization can learn to learn all these changes in the way they do it. The problem is you think about it. Got an organization, let's look at our Denver licensing example. All of a sudden, there's not a long line anymore. What do people do? They go in there, the boss comes in there, the managers come in there, they look around and say, wow, we got a well-run unit here. Maybe they'll get less money in the next budget cut or the next budget allocation. But the point is, you don't see any of these individual improvements. They just disappear in the way things are going. But that's where the power is. That's where the power is in these frontline ideas. Finding three that I wanted to share with you today is you need a spectrum of tools. Not all problems are the same. You need a way to connect these just do it small ideas. You need ways to handle bigger ideas. Generally, what we divide it into is three different levels of improvement. First of all, you need an approach to handle large numbers of small frontline ideas quickly and efficiently. That has to be done at the frontline level. You don't want to push that up into management. That snarls management. Plus, they don't know as much about what's going on as the people on the front lines. And so you just handle it right on the front lines with the teams, with the frontline supervisors, just get it done. Next, you need approaches to mid-size process level problems. These might stretch across departments, but they're process focused, and you need essentially a way to get the right people together with the right tools with a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to solve larger problems that might impact more people, might have to coordinate across units and things like that. Lastly, you need an approach to handle complex systems level things. That's more like a campaign. That's more like a campaign where you need a lot of other little improvements to make it work. These are the big things that need to be driven by the top. Now, give you an example of one of our best examples on this was actually what New Brunswick did. New Brunswick, Canada, of all places, has one of the most sophisticated statewide systems, in this case, province-wide systems we encountered. And they operate at 6 different levels. They have, at the frontline level, they have daily management. In other words, every day they're improving. They have waste walks where the frontline people look and study and see what they can do better. They have rapid improvement events at the next level of analysis, then Lean Six Sigma, value stream mapping when they're looking at a whole process across the unit. And lastly, deliverology, if you're familiar with that. That's what Prime Minister Tony Blair put in England that became popular. Very, very top down, very top driven. Watch out, as soon as the politician is gone out of office, it disappears because it's all dependent upon that pressure from the top. But anyways, New Brunswick did a fantastic job on this. They saved hundreds of millions of dollars a year when they were in a budget crisis. But the hundreds of millions of dollars didn't even stack up to the efficiency they gained and how they did better. We found examples for example, in New Brunswick of a primary school, K through 8, where in a year and a half, using Lean Six Sigma improvement techniques, driven by the teachers themselves, they increased the level of fluency, and this was a French system, of language, people that pass language in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade from 22% to 78% in 18 months using continuous improvement. In a school. How many school system programs have we seen that have generated that kind of results? Fourth, one of the things we want to do is, even at all these higher levels we're talking about, the teams getting together to solve problems, get that frontline knowledge and expertise. Like I was talking about at the French school in New Brunswick, it was the teachers that were involved. As a matter of fact, it was kind of fascinating. One of the things they used to identify where the problems were is they used a Pareto analysis, which sort of prioritizes how many times what happened to interrupt the learning experience. They drove that right down in the classroom, and you had 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders doing their own Pareto charts on why they didn't do well on a test, right in the classroom. Now that's teaching lean early on, teaching continuous improvement early on. It's exciting to see, Lastly, I want to touch on how do you get started? I want to leave plenty of time for questions, because usually the questions are more interesting than what I'm talking to you about. How do you get started if you're a frontline leader? What if you're that frontline supervisor, if you got a department of 20 or 30 people? How do you get started? Well, first of all, you develop some sort of shared local vision, a measurable goal. In the case of Denver licensing, Stacy is very obvious. What was the problem? The long wait lines. So she focused her attention, her ideas on dropping the wait line, anything that could make that transaction smoother. And they came up with all kinds of small ideas. Secondly, what you do is you set up a simple system to capture and track improvements. Could be a weekly huddle. It could be a daily huddle. Some places go daily, get behind, in front of a whiteboard for 10 minutes, 5 minutes before things start. Here's the problem we're looking at. What problems are you having? Any ideas on how to fix them? Put them up there, track them, give people credit, make sure they get implemented, and then develop a good problem solvers. Give them some training, not a lot of training. One day of training was all that Stacy gave her people at Denver licensing. Now, the managers got 5 days, and we're coaching and stuff like that. But it doesn't take a lot. And you know what we also found that was interesting? It doesn't matter what approach you use. There's lots of different approaches out there, as long as it fits you and you pursue it. Lastly, make improvement part of everyone's job. Expect it, you know, get around, okay, how are we going to solve this problem, folks? Not the manager, the supervisor saying that. Get the people involved to identify the problems that they're facing. Now, if you all of a sudden are a frontline person and can identify the problems you're facing and you're listened to, and then you can solve them, what does that do for you? Think about it. One of the interesting side benefits that came out of Denver licensing is before this, when there was all the pressure, the 5-hour waits, all the frustrated folks, turnover was pretty high. You can expect it to be, right? Turnover of the frontline people was 30% a year. Once this was put in place, guess what? I asked her how she retrained the new people, and she stopped and thought, you know, we haven't had to hire anyone lately. Turnover went to practically nothing. It impacts people's lives, frontline people's lives. It makes their work life better. And we actually have stories of how they took that home with them and it made their home lives better. In one company we dealt with, this private sector company, they said our number of divorces went from the usual for a company our size to 0 when we implemented our frontline engagement and idea system. Funny thing. All right, if you're a high-level leader, you've got a larger unit, you got departments, one of the things you have to do is you start out, you got to sell people on it. You got to work through other people. You can't do frontline improvement if you're not on the front line. So you got to start by selling through it, find a champion, somebody you can't necessarily, you're going to promote it, but you need an expert. You need to borrow that expertise or get somebody that's going to champion this, set up the infrastructure, support groups, training, improvement systems. Here's the interesting thing. Well, if you think of CDOT, Gary Van Such in his group is the support group. You need that and Gary's the champion. You need that type of thing to push the system out there. Launch in the rolled out method. You can't launch it everyone at once. You can't support it. You'll have lots of failures. Make sure you have successes. So what Brian Elms used to say is go with a coalition of the willing. Which managers, which frontline supervisors are willing to champion this? Then you give them their support. You get them successful. You use those stories then to sell the others. And lastly, you integrate it into all work norms at every level. I sort of went through that rather quickly. There's a lot in the book. We looked at a lot. I think I'll turn it over to questions and let you ask whatever you want. If you've had trouble with something, just ask and I'll try to address it. Any way I can help you guys out. Also, by the way, if you want to know more about me, dmschroeder.com, right? Nice, easy to remember website. But you'll see on the screen our super secret BK 30% discount website. You can't get that by going directly to our publisher, Barrett Kohler's direct site. This is one they set up special. We conned them into giving 30% off. Now that's on audio, on electronic downloads, or on hard copy. But if you're interested in getting a copy, that's where you can get it for 30% off. Like I said, super secret. We don't advertise this except for people we promote to.
Thank you so much. I didn't know if we were going to be able to get that super secret code for our community. So that's awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Dean.
You're welcome. Now, have you been given any questions, or do you have any questions, Michelle?
We've had comments in the chat, but no questions as of yet. So I wanted to ask, what are your questions today? And Dean's great, and you'd seen in the chat, he has 3 different books. We've used all of them at CDOT. We hope to use the last one that you just wrote too, the Practical Innovation in Government. So we do have early copies, we're lucky, but looking forward to applying all the learning that you guys have done to our own systems at CDOT. So are there any questions out there?
Looks like Alyssa has her hand up.
Oh, thank you. Alyssa.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Dean, my hurdle so far seems to be a perception at my leadership level that belting is the way to incentivize problem solvers throughout the organization. And I tend to be in diametrical opposition to that mindset and think we would be better served if everyone in our population had a basic intro into problem solving versus a couple sprinkled throughout the organization with intense greenbelt programs. So do you have any advice for me on how to get over that hurdle with them?
You said belting as in
like
green belts and black belts?
Yeah, which means very few people have access to that training because that's comprehensive and expensive and time consuming.
Well, yeah. Let me put it this way. In Denver, more than 50% of the of everybody in government has been trained. Belting is fine, except when you have to have a belt to make the improvement. It's fine to use the belts as use the black belts, the green belts as coaches, as mentors, as people that are encouraging others. There's nothing wrong with belting per se, but what the job of the belts should be is to promote continuous improvement with others, not just do the jobs themselves. Now, there are some of the larger jobs, for example, that are more complicated, that have to navigate through the bureaucracy, through the organizational structure, get different departments involved. There's some things like that where the extra training comes in handy. But if the whole idea is to have everyone involved in small ideas. Now, you don't need to give a belt in Six Sigma that takes 13 weeks plus a project, an improvement project. You don't need that to find a better way to serve a customer and all these little things. So the issue is, in many cases, it's not an either or, it's a both and. But the two should be integrated. Those belts should be coaching and teaching, not just I'm a big dude. I'm important. I've got a belt.
Cool. Thank you, Dean.
You betcha.
Alice.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Oh, I can put my hand down, I guess. I have a question about, we're excited to try to get our supervisors promoting this concept of having frontline workers come up with new ideas for doing things better. And I'm curious your thoughts on how we get the supervisors on board, right? Because sometimes the supervisors are like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to talk about this. I don't have time to explore the ideas.
This is the flavor of the month, or this is this politician's idea. That too
will
change.
Yeah.
Well, basically what you don't want to do is try to push it to everybody. I mean, you offer it, but what you focus on is a few of the folks that are interested in it. And what this is a way to make them look good and make their jobs easier and much more productive. So you sell it in that way, but there will be some people, you'll have a full spectrum. And what you do is you try to identify a handful of the supervisors, the frontline supervisors who buy into this concept, and then you educate them, give them training, have a system to do it. You can't just say, listen to your people, be it a huddle board system, weekly meetings, a flip chart, for God's sakes. You can really go guerrilla with this stuff. A flip chart. Start out by asking, have them, teach them how to start out by asking their folks, what are the problems you face? And then, okay, let's use Vodadot to figure out which problem we're going to focus on first. And okay, now we want ideas on that. Your ideas, small ideas, not blaming them or not asking it from them, things we can do ourselves just to get started. Now then you form this cadre into a users group. You focus on getting them going. And then what you do is you grow the user group. Other managers start seeing, they start talking, they start saying, well, gosh, look at the improvements they did in their unit. But you know, the funny one is when the managers, the supervisors, employees start pushing them because, hey, Amanda over in Michelle's operation is allowed to give in ideas and she was able to solve her problem. When are we going to be able to do that? And so what you do is you start with that core that's successful, you publicize it and publicize it whenever you have opportunities, and grow it from that strength. But that does a couple things for you, Alice. It gets the people that are interested, and they're the ones that are going to find ways to make it work. They're going to find ways to improve it. So you can improve your system as you go then, and the way you approach it. So by the time you get the last few people that you might have to let retire, but by the time you get further along, you'll have a more streamlined approach, and you'll have all of this embedded knowledge. So you just grow it out that way.
This is a great tip. Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I got a full approach. I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Very cool. Real quickly, Dean, can you move back to the slide about how to get started as a top leader? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so next question is in the chat. It says, change resistance scenario. Someone on the front line knows there's a problem. Where in the organization are those ideas likely to not be listened to?
Someone on the front line knows there's a problem. Well, let me ask this question. It all depends upon what level of the organization the problem is at. If somebody at the front line level shows it says there's a problem at the top level, it's not going to happen in most organizations. But you see, the interesting thing is once you develop an organization where the front line is active on this, it actually percolates up. Let me give you an example. The classic example I have is right there in your state. Denver licensing, or Denver's marijuana problem. Okay, the mayor didn't even want it, but he says the people voted for it, 60%, I better get behind this. But instead of setting up another bureaucracy, what was done was they set up a group, a team that sort of got together. It was like the doer level, the second, third level manager on each of the critical departments, everything from the police to the health department to you name it, would get together in the task force when needed. But the interesting thing is their eyes and ears were the inspectors out in the field that were telling them what was going on. And so they were listening. So you set up that listening, but that was in a system that was pretty sophisticated already. And the mayor had been pushing that for a while, listening to the frontline folks. Now, most cases, it all depends upon the level it's at. And let's face it, there are times and situations where we can't, where we have to wait until the right time to be heard on that level is. But in the meantime, there's oftentimes a lot of things you can do at the front line and the lower levels to mitigate some of that problem. Can't solve it totally, but you mitigate it. And the other thing that happens is as you're attacking it and mitigating it, then you are making the case. Let's say it's 2 levels up and you've improved it and put all these patches on and put all these fixes on that you can do at your level. Then the time becomes right. Maybe it's budget time, maybe it's an annual review, whatever it is. Then you bring that up to that level and you say, look, we have done all of these things to help it, and it's still only 25% done. What we really need is bang. We need to look at this whole process and put this in it. And that's, so you're kind of selling up, but you're doing it from a position of power and action, not from a position of complaining.
Right. I like that. Thank you. Let's see, we have one more in chat right now. It says, how does a leader convince people that it will now be safe to report a problem while it's still early and easier to solve?
You know the problem we have. People come up with ideas, and they're always coming up with ideas, and in a lot of organizations, that's seen as complaining, because they're solving a complaint. There's a complaint, and we've got to change our mentality on that. And the answer to that is you get a good frontline system going, and teach your frontline people to be good problem identifiers. The other thing that happens, the other thing is a lot of problems are introduced into a system when there's a major change. There's a major change. It's a policy change, a practice change, something. It creates a lot of new problems, new issues. So let's say you're putting in a new software system. I'm just using this as an example. The people at the top that are putting it in should be saying to their people, we want you to complain. We want you to complain early and loud. And then they need to be set up and ready to respond to those complaints. And that's how you solve those problems early on before they get out of line. But this is also, in a strange way, the same way we introduce this system into this frontline driven system with the coalition of the willing. Why? Because that's when the problems with the system, its weaknesses, where we're going to have to figure out where it bucks up against might buck up against some policy we have or some practice we have. So do it small, do it early. My favorite though, when I make a major change is, guys, complain. As a matter of fact, I'm going to come down there for a listening session and I want you to just tear it apart. But then what I'm also going to want from you is I'm going to want how to fix it. You tear it apart, I'll put up all the problems and said, okay, now how are we going to fix this? What can you do to help us out here? How can we own that problem down here at this level? I can change this, I can change that. What about these things? You got any ideas? I'm out of budget. What can we do for not $5,000, but $5?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. That's one we ran into in a government organization. We put the system in and they had all these great ideas. The cheapest one was going to cost $15,000. And we came back and we said, oh, now we can see why you're not getting traction. Everybody's got all these good ideas, but now we took an idea of, it was a $15,000 idea. It was training for everybody on Excel. We asked, well, why'd you come up with this idea? And she explained the problem she was having and stuff like that, and the training would really come in handy. Person right next to her said, oh, I can show you how to do that in 5 minutes. I know how to do that. And so the issue is, take that $15,000 improvement idea and say, what can we do if we had 50? And there's a lot of things you can do in the shortcut that will mitigate most of the problem. It might not solve it as nicely, as elegantly, but there's a whole lot of difference. You got a whole lot of variance if you got 15,000 versus and taking people out of work for 3 days to do the job, compared to $50 and getting an 80% solved.
Right. I like that. Very good. Are there any other questions? We might have time for maybe one more, if there's any more.
Well, Michelle, let me offer this. A lot of times people are afraid to ask the larger group. A lot of times people are afraid to or don't come up with the question until it's too late. I invite anyone who's listening to this, if they have a question or want to talk to me, send me an email. Send me an email and I'll talk to them.
That's awesome.
I'm also going to be out there on September 13th.
Yes.
Giving a presentation, and I don't know if that's open to anyone who wants to come or what that's set up to, but I'm certainly will be available out there for a couple of days if I need to, if somebody needs me to talk to their department or something.
Yep, Gary already put that in chat. He said anybody in the Denver area to let him know if they want to attend.
I'll be there, and I'm in town for a couple of days. So so if you've got a team you want me to talk to, we can see what we can arrange.
All right, wonderful. So very exciting, Dean. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to being out there in person. It's so much more fun in person.
Yes, I can't wait to see you in person too. I'm going to come up for that. So
thank you, and thanks for inviting me. I'm glad I could slip in the last minute like this.
Oh, we really truly appreciate it. Okay,
right.
Let me share my screen. Here we go. All right, guys, can you see my screen okay? Yep. Okay. So again, thank you. And these are the books that Dean and Ellen Robinson have written. So the ideas are free, the idea-driven organization, and the new one that just came out, Practical Innovation in Government. If you haven't read these, I strongly support it. You need to do it. I've read them all except for the new one. I'm still waiting on my copy because I haven't been up to Denver yet lately. So or I need to go pick it up. But so I will be reading it as soon as I get it. So any questions about, and this was something that Courtney put together too. She says she found this on LinkedIn, I believe. 2 years ago, I was saying, do you have questions? And so I probably need to break my habit of saying that as well. Last year, I switched to what questions do you have? And it made a difference. So how we word our questions, I mean, she goes on to say today, I tried asking, ask me 2 questions, and they did. And those and those questions led to more questions. It amazes me how the little things have such a big impact. So with that being said, what questions do you have for the PSCB board? Do you have any questions before we move on? I want to thank all of you guys for coming today. It has been an amazing webinar today. We're very happy. Corey put into the chat the link to the survey, so please complete that survey for today's webinar, and remember to enter your information if you need PDUs from PMI. Again, here's the PSCP website. You can snap that QR code real quick if you want. Make sure you go in there. Today's webinar will be posted on there within a day or two. And of course, our PSCP LinkedIn group. Again, there's the QR code. Please join. Dean, you're welcome to join too. You'll get updates and information about future webinars. And then of course, all of our presentations, all our webinars will be on YouTube as well. So with that being said, until next time, please stay safe and keep on keeping on with change management and helping everybody change. We really appreciate all of you. Have a great day.